So I'll just keep rambling and tell you what we're going to get up to today. Next slide, Tyler. And that's going to give us a little introduction as soon as she arrives. And I have no doubt one of my colleagues is poking her on Slack or by email at the moment. And she's just arrived. Then we'll have a few companies. They'll give us a little update on how they're doing, as well as some news and excitement on their side. At Foresight, obviously, we are a Cleantech accelerator, and it is all about the companies. So we want to take a few minutes to highlight some of them and the good work they're doing. We'll have a chance for us all to say hello. We've added a bunch of new faces, some of them here I see today. Then we'll be having some updates from the commercialization team, the marketing team, and heading back to programs for some updates on what we did last quarter, what we've got coming up next quarter, and finally, if there's time, some questions from you. And without further ado, I'll say next slide, Tyler. I'll turn it over to Jeanette.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Great to be here. I know I haven't been at the last few meetups, but I'm definitely just delighted to be here for a few minutes today to chat with everyone and catch up. First and foremost, before I dive in, I just wanted to shout out to Stephen and the entire Accelerator team for all of the tremendous work that they've been doing across the board, both on the Accelerator services piece, but ensuring that the innovation community is tapped into all of the work we're trying to do to make sure that industry, academia, government, and of course, investors are at the table supporting the innovation journey for the ventures that you're all supporting and leaning in with. I am going to walk through a couple of slides and then just share a few off the cuff updates, but just so that we're all, aware and reminding ourselves sort of why are we here? Why are we doing what we do every day? And really our goal is to make Canada the most robust place for climate innovation from an ecosystem approach. So ensuring that, again, industry, government, academia, investors, and industry are aligning on all of the opportunities to collaborate and ensure that we can support Canada's transition to a net zero future. Next slide. In terms of how we do that, of course, you're all feet and hands on the ground in terms of working with the ventures, but we do a lot of work behind the scenes trying to break down silos and making sure that we have different stakeholders within different sector buckets and regions, communicating and sharing what some of their opportunities are for us to engage and make introductions for the innovation community. We also do have a pretty successful pilot for our growth program. We've significantly over-delivered on metrics, and we're hoping to expand that program so that we have more resources to support the ventures beyond the launch and deliver program. And so a couple of pieces for that will include investor readiness, path to pilot, et cetera, et cetera. But all those things are really about scaling the technologies that have the most promise, not only for domestic adoption, but for international export opportunities. And then, of course, accelerating the adoption through challenge programs and other frameworks that we're offering. Next slide. We've already covered most of this. To complement sort of the Accelerator and Innovation Challenge frameworks, a lot of you may have seen that we're also doing a bit of market research. We want to sort of bring to life what we're hearing in a lot of these meetings and sessions, surveys, and put it in a format that's palatable by different stakeholder groups, whether it's the innovators themselves, academic institutions. We are really hyper focused on problem, market, and data-driven decisions and activities. And so we do believe that research is a strong pillar. Shout out to David and his team for the work they've been doing. We certainly should not overlook the number of strategic partnerships. If you're following along on LinkedIn, that's probably the best place. And our newsletters, you'll see that every couple of weeks, we're trying to work with different regional and sectoral groups. So whether it's the academic institutions, UVic, we've got an event next week. They're really interested in things like sustainable finance. So through our BC Cluster Initiative, we have an MOU in place with them to help support their efforts. There's also quite a few other more smaller regional accelerators that are interested in learning from all of you and the work that Stephen and the team have been doing so that we can bring in that clean tech expertise when the ventures get to the right stage. And all of that is really through, again, partnerships so that we can be more collaborative and not have people operating in silos. And then, of course, cluster building. We are moving on to phase 2 of the BC Cleantech Cluster Initiative, which many of you will know as CORE. And we're actually starting some preliminary discussions for those activities in Alberta and Ontario as well. Through one of the strategic partnerships with the Center for Social Innovation, we now have feet on the ground in Ontario. Barnaby is awesome. I'm sure he'll show up to one of the events soon. He's on vacation today, but they're really interested to look at how we're supporting the innovation community with that approach. So again, all great work and all thanks to the team for driving all of this forward. Next slide. Was that the last one? Oh, and finally, is this the last one, Tyler?
Yes.
Finally, just a summary of the impact. So last year was a big year for us. So this would be a good segue. We do have an annual report coming out. You'll see that in the next couple of weeks here. Last year, we supported over 300 ventures alone. That included supports with the COVID-19 response program on things like supply chain and transforming your business, pivoting in the event of a pandemic. These ventures have gone on to secure over $500 million in capital, both private and public. I do want to highlight that the majority of that funding, over 51%, is private capital. So we are showing tremendous value to the investment community. We do track jobs. It's our obligation, as a lot of our government funding dollars come from that, or a lot of our dollars come from those pools. And so we do want to make sure we're showcasing green jobs and, of course, all the partnerships. Over the last quarter, we supported 17 new ventures. They actually secured $80 million in capital. I think actually that metric also includes a few closes from our growth program participants, and 25 million in revenue, 170 new jobs, and we signed 10 more MOUs. So before passing it back to Stephen for the really good stuff, I just wanted to highlight a couple of updates that aren't reflected in these slides. The annual report is coming out. I think it's a great tool for you to see what we've been working on, but we do also have a new 3-year strategic plan, and it's really a path to 2030 plan. So it's the first of 3 plans that will end in March of 2024. And you're going to start to see a breakdown of what we're thinking in terms of programs and overall ecosystem building activities that we think is going to be critical for Canada to reach net zero climate targets through innovation. And of course, with a broader, I'd say, ambitious set of goals, we also need to make sure that we have the right people on board to support. So you're going to see some announcements of a few new team members, as well as even some of the EIRs, Frank, for example, jumping in to fill a few new seats and advising in different capacities. And in fact, we expect to be leaning on some of you when you have availability in different ways as well to support these initiatives. And then just to close off, I myself personally have been in EIR for a few years before taking on this role. And we've always said, how cool would it be to have a venture capital arm of Foresight? How cool would it be to have, $30, $50 million, not under Foresight, we're a non-for-profit, but at least arm's length organization that can really help us provide the capital that our ventures need, as well as ventures that perhaps don't need Foresight support, but are part of the national climate community. And so we have hired a managing partner for Foresight Capital. She will be announcing some of her updates in the next couple of, I'd say probably the next 4 to 6 weeks. There's a lot of behind the scenes things happening here. And we are also going to be giving the opportunity for you as EiRs and mentors to join a roundtable to hear what's happening, as well as perhaps provide feedback on the approach that we're thinking. And so Stephen and Tyler will be taking care of that through a survey. And if you are interested in supporting capital, policies, programs, some of the sector development, I know everyone loves to get into the capital side, but we would really love to make sure that you're recognized as providing brain power and input, just to make sure that we're making the right decisions with the best information and concepts in mind. So a very exciting time, and it's a very strategic hire. It is a separate organization, but we are seed funding it through a lot of the effort over the last couple of years. We were able to put a little money away to make this investment, as well as a few others and a few new strategic initiatives that you'll see in the 3-year strategic plan. So lots of good stuff. I'm sure there's lots of questions, but please enter those in the survey, and happy to continue to be part. I'll be part of some of those roundtable discussions in the coming weeks, so that we can break it down into more bite-sized workshops. So thanks everyone for all your contributions, your passion for the space. Sometimes I feel like we've accomplished so much, and then sometimes I feel like we still have so much more to go. And I think when we see the news and all these updates on, the IEC reports and everything, there is a lot more to do. And so I do think together we can achieve what we've never thought possible before. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. With that, Tyler, can you move to the next slide? Oh, just roll back there 1 second. I just wanted to highlight, I know a lot of times you are stuck with dealing with myself, or you're fortunate enough to be dealing with Amanda, Tony, or Tyler. This is the rest of what the Foresight team looks like. We've got Jacob and the commercialization team that Jeanette highlighted there, Elizabeth running operations and marketing. We've got a lot of horsepower there. So if you touch on any companies, some good news stories that you want us to share, please do let us know about that. And finally, David Sangley is heading up the technology side of things. You'll notice some pieces I'll touch on a little bit later. Under Water Next, we've got a gentleman by the name of Alan Shapiro. Under Energy Next, Joseph Martini. So the team continues to grow and strengthen. And if you go to the next slide, Tyler, back when we were a little bit smaller, I would have each person give a little hello. We don't have time for that anymore because we added 4 new folks in the last quarter, and we've already got a few people that I think we've identified to add in the next quarter. So always excitement as the team grows, but maybe Lee Kang will give a little wave. She is on the call today. She's just connecting to audio. Lee, little wave.
Oh,
hi. She's the new person who's here. Hey, Lee, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Excited to have you as part of the team. Tyler, if you want to flip to the next slide. All right, and we've been adding mentors and executives in residence as Foresight. Though we started as a BC company, has become a pan-Canadian organization. What we've really looked to do is strengthen ourselves and add great people to support ventures across the country and building out our mentor network to help companies with a variety of supports that they need across all kind of professional services. And I think we've added 25 people. I don't have even the time to read them all out by name, but do know that if you do have challenges with companies, reach out to Tyler or Tony or Amanda, and we'll find somebody who will help you. We had a case recently where a company actually said, we need an SEO expert. And we said, we don't have one. Let's go find one. And Tyler was kind enough to do that in relatively short order and able to support that company. So we are here to help as much as possible. Moving right along, we'll get to something I find very exciting, hearing from some of our companies. I know many of you will have seen the companies and the programs and the quarterly reviews, but here's some folks that you might not have heard for a while. The first one up is going to be Mark Rabin from Portable Electric. Mark went through our program a few years ago, and he's here to give us a little update and share some interesting, exciting news.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everybody. It's been a little while since I guess I've spoken to some of you, and then probably a lot of new faces. So keep up the awesome work, Foresight and Jeanette and team. Congrats on the fund. That's going to be exciting as well. So, we just need to see those strategic partnerships and alignment start to really come to fruition. I think that's going to be a big piece here. So 1 minute, lots of stuff going on at Portable Electric. I don't even know where to start, but I took some notes here, so I'll just kick it off. Well, first, thanks again for all your support in this. It's been, as you know, hardware is hard, and growing a hardware technology and R&D company that's scaling and pivoting in a where cash flow is a big issue. That's probably one of our biggest challenges here. But we are seeing crazy traction. We've gone from like a small batch sales to negotiating 7-figure deals, which is huge for our company. Right now, we are also looking at wrapping our axle around technology and R&D, very focused on that, and then working with strategic and OEM partnerships. This has been kind of a natural progression for us. We're currently in late-stage negotiations with Oshkosh Corp and JLG. If you're familiar with them, they make the orange and yellow lifts. They're a big industrial player in the States to develop their entire line of portable power systems for construction. Pretty excited about that. That's going to be transformational. We are in negotiations with Loop Energy to develop a hybrid hydrogen system. Again, predominantly focused on construction, as well as looking at multi-equip. They make diesel generators. In terms of the major studios, again, 7-figure deals that we're working on with Netflix, NBC, Amazon. And then in construction, we've been going into that world with groups like Hewitt, Turner, and Bechtel. So when we look out into the landscape of what we're doing, that's really around those strategic partnerships. We're also selling small batch fleets as well, and doing a sale and leaseback financing asset pool fund as well. So our goal is to get equipment in people's hands, and in whatever way we can do that, that's sort of what we want to do. we are prepping for our Series B. We're a little bit behind on that. We are looking at launching this in September, raising around 30 million. Just to put it into perspective, our closest competitor has raised 50 million last year and has raised 100 million in total. And then a brand new entrant in the market that just came out of Y Combinator just raised 10 million US. They have one prototype and not a lot of traction. So we're in that sweet spot. This is to focus on R&D, next generation technology development, contract manufacturing, sales and marketing, and corporate infrastructure. So, you know, looking at those options, we are looking at the VC option, of course, but we're also looking at other options. There's a lot of private equity out there. There's even the IPO route down the road. We are very open to all things, especially if we can get cash to go and execute on what we're doing. So, you know, I'm sure lots of you have opinions on where that money can come from, and we're open to that as well.
Fantastic. Mark,
lastly,
just in the interest of time,
one more
really
thing.
quick?
Lastly, some housekeeping notes. We do have an AGM upcoming next week. We are going to be bringing on a very senior team and board of directors. So very much looking to having some governance. We are doing a convertible note in advance of the Series B because obviously that can take time to bridge lumpy cash flow and sort of the fact that we have to sort of build and fund equipment, and then we get to 50% upfront, 50% before we ship. So if any of you are interested, we are doing that convertible note, and we're looking to close that early to mid-September. So that's the update.
Mark, thank you very much, and congratulations on all the good news and the exciting developments at Portable Electric. Next up, I believe if you go to the next slide, it's Marte from Circular Rubber Technologies.
Thank you, Stephen. So we've just been through the process, launch and delivery. So this is my first meeting. So hello, and great to be here. So about CRT, 20 million ton of virgin rubber is used every year to make new tires, and Circular Rubber Technologies converts the rubber in end-of-life mining tires into a rubber reclaim that substitutes virgin rubber material. So my name is Maartje van der Zande. I'm CEO and co-founder. With our process, we provide tire manufacturers with a high-quality alternative to virgin rubber at a significantly lower CO2 emissions and stable cost levels. So CRT's proprietary process is a clean process, and it produces a rubber reclaim with physical properties suitable for use in new tires. Our team combines decades of experience in rubber recycling, capital project management, and venture-backed scale-ups. We've proven our concept and produced around 1,000 kilograms of rubber reclaim to date. We've just raised $500,000 US, which allows us to start producing larger volumes and generate our first revenue later this year. For now, what will really help us is introductions to decision makers in preferably Canadian operating rubber compounding companies like Soucy Baron, Felix Group, or Airbus. Thank you very much, and let's jointly make the future a bit more circular.
Thank you very much, Marte. Next up, we have Hamid from Alea Labs.
Hi there, I'm Hamid Farzaneh, the CEO and co-founder of Alea Labs. The problem that we're addressing is very generalized in North America because that's where central forced air is the dominant form of heating and cooling. And the problem is that there is a single point of control, which is the thermostat that turns the system on and off. So it's a brute force system, and it causes all sorts of problems. We have a solution that's been now proven with working on successful pilots, including with Amazon and KB Home. We have an attractive value proposition, and we have a large market with an obtainable market of close to 7 million homes in just North America. We already have a purchase order for $1 million. And we need currently $500,000 to manufacture product for that order. And we are in the gray zone where we are too early for banks and also for VCs. So where we need help is essentially advice and support to get going and prime the pump with this small investment that will pay off handsomely later on. Thank you.
Hamid, thank you so much. So what I love about Foresight is we get to work with all sorts of innovators. I mean, from tire recycling to residential homes and the heating industry to obviously portable power solutions. These are just three of the ventures we're working with, but I thought that they would be an interesting cross section as well. Some ways that you can possibly reach out and help those folks. I'm sure they'll be kind enough to put their email addresses in the chat should you have any suggestions for them. With that, I think Tyler is going to move us into some networking. Obviously, for me, a big value to this group is understanding who else is here, how you can contribute to companies they're supporting, and how they can possibly make some requests of you. And, you know, feel a little bit more like the Foresight family. You're all a big part, such a big part of what we do and how we add value to ventures. So without any further ado, Tyler, do you want to set that one up for us?
Yes, absolutely. So in a few moments here, I am going to set up our breakout rooms. I've already pre-assigned everyone. And so when you get in there, just take a minute or two. I think I have allotted roughly 2 minutes for everyone to just discuss who you are, what you do, and just a fun little icebreaker here as well is if you could learn any one skill right now, what would it be? So yeah, I'm gonna set us up here in just a moment, and once we're there, we'll get the conversation going.
I hope everyone had a chance to meet some new people, some folks they hadn't talked to before, learn a little bit more of who else is in the Foresight family and how we all might be able to collaborate to help Cleantech ventures. And I will move on to, I believe it's the commercialization team that's up first. Jacob, did you want to share some updates? Tyler, are you sharing the screen there?
Sure, if you want to share the screen, I can do some tap dancing. So I want to give a quick update on the work of the commercialization team. This is a really exciting, it's been a really exciting quarter. I want to especially recognize David Sanguinetti and the technology team and also marketing and communications. What we've really seen is Foresight's capacity to execute on opportunities is orders of magnitude above what it was even 6 months ago, let alone a year ago. And where that's bearing fruit is particularly around our innovation work. So our SDG Connect series, which connects overseas companies to Canadian innovators, is really expanding, growing, standardizing. And I think that's going to become a regular part of Foresight's deal flow creation opportunities for our companies. The CRIN Challenge, which David is running, is going really well. And we also have a new sector-specific mining challenge in the hopper, which will be announced shortly. Again, sourcing solutions for one of Canada's most important sectors. We also have a view to create, standardize a Foresight Challenge program with the ability to offer solutions for municipalities, regional governments, as well as large industry, based on the work that we've done with these other interesting challenges, just to create our own national platform for challenges. On the ecosystem side, we've got new BC and Alberta leads starting in September. Really excited about our hires there, and you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. With BC, we really went through a deep dive and dialogue with the federal government and the BC government in terms of what they're looking for, with the idea that we want to be much more stakeholder driven. And what that means is having, we have regional hubs of clean tech activities throughout the province of BC, but they're often not interconnected and they're not effectively connected to the federal and provincial governments. And so Foresight is really going to step in and provide that glue, provide missing programming, support existing programming, and collect and disseminate intelligence on what's happening in these regions, with the idea that we're going to be engaging clean tech innovators, not just in the Lower Mainland, but really across the province. And hoping that kind of integrated model is going to become really kind of a made in Canada cluster approach that we can expand across the country. In Alberta, there's lots of ongoing work that's happening. We've got upcoming dialogues through CRIN, a series of events on carbon and on hydrogen, as well as a new project in the hopper to pilot hydrogen dual fuel retrofits. And we've got some fleet operators stepping up to provide pilot solutions there. We also have a forthcoming clean tech report and ecosystem map from Alberta, thanks to Jason Switzer and Andrea Bravo and the team did a ton of work on that. It's going to be a really interesting snapshot in terms of clean tech in Alberta, and I think providing a really useful tool for policymakers and industry and investors to understand exactly what's happening in that dynamic landscape. Finally, in Ontario, we've got an alliance with the Center for Social Innovation to work on exploring an EV cluster, as well as just Ontario cluster opportunities in general. Our next series continues to expand. Our most developed next cluster is water, which is led by Alan Shapiro, but also agriculture, carbon, and energy are really starting to hit their stride. And I think we're going to see some big announcements there in the next few months. A lot of that work is structured around this notion of path to pilot assessment and training. So really orienting our ventures to be ready to undertake those initial commercial orders and or pilot test their technology effectively across a swath of public and private buyers. You'll see increased emphasis on ecosystem mapping and sector-specific cohorts. Again, as clean tech expands, the opportunity to specialize has really come to the fore, and that's where the next series kind of comes in.
Jacob, finally, before we get too far away, I would have made a terrible scientist because I love anecdotal evidence. The SDG Connect, an example of that would have been like Vestas and us helping them find technology for the recyclable wind turbine blades.
Yeah, that's right.
And exactly. And it was actually a Foresight, one Foresight company was a finalist in that, or possibly moved forward with the solution.
2 Foresight companies were selected. Vestas was interested in solutions for the design of more recyclable turbine blades, but also in different ways to recycle the turbine blades as well. So this is a great example of a regulatory driven market. So in France, you're going to see within the next 10 years, a ban on incineration of wind turbine blades. And that's currently the only way to get rid of them. So these companies have to design an entirely new generation of turbine blades from scratch. And they are really aggressively looking for solutions to do that. So it's a great example of how we can kind of help those companies understand exactly what's happening in Canada, what's the state of play, and sort of challenge some of the, it's just a very efficient way for them to figure out what's going on in Canada at a specific point in time. And that can be challenging for companies that may just have a couple of innovation people that are trying to capture the whole global market for new technology that exists, right? So we provide a really useful service through that program. Thanks, Stephen.
And then the other thing I wanted to, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Canadian Resource Innovation Network and the low emission fuels and value added products, that's a wonderful mouthful. You know, that's a $25 million challenge, right? That's kind of a big deal on the challenge landscape, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would say that's probably one of the largest innovation challenges that's happening in the country right now. And I would certainly defer to David and his team. I'd reach out to David Sanguinetti directly if you'd like to learn more about that challenge. But again, I think it shows that our ability to execute large scale innovation challenges has matured substantially thanks to his work.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt and disrupt your flow.
No, that's okay. I love it.
I'd point out on that one that currently we're in the middle of it. There was a first round expression of interest. 10 applicants have moved on to the final proposal phase, and there are a couple of the coaches, EIRs, who agreed to act as coaches for that, who are on the call right now. Actually, there's at least 3 that I can see, if not 4 of you on. So yeah, it's going forward, doing nicely.
All right, I'm going to just leave it there. I could go on and on, but I will stop and pass back to Stephen.
All right, fantastic. I just wanted to highlight the wonderful work that the commercialization team is doing in bringing international companies in to look at our little ventures, as well as obviously working with some of the largest challenges happening in the Canadian innovation space. Purposeful Partnerships, I think, Sarah, were you going to be here to speak to that?
I was and I am.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sarah and I am the Director of Corporate Sponsorships at Foresight, and I just joined Foresight in April. So I want to talk a little bit about our learning journey and what we've done since then really quickly. Purposeful Partnerships is our corporate sponsorship program, and corporate sponsors at Foresight, we consider them mainly service providers, professional service providers that are interested in accessing our network of ventures. So they could include HR or legal, marketing, IT, shred, firms like that provide the basic services, as well as engineering and the more peripheral ones. So in Q2, as soon as I joined in the spring, we did a pretty positive outreach to a push to corporate sponsors. So we contacted both industry and corporate sponsors, built some relationships, sort of tested the waters and had a few learnings and positive outcomes from there. In the summer, in Q3, we took a step back to expand and scale the program, sort of redirect and figure out how we were going to approach it and move forward for a strong push in the fall. We redeveloped our collateral and implemented a custom sponsorship model. So that was based on conversations that we'd had from corporates that wanted to be able to shape the sponsorship that they were entering into with Foresight in a way that would work for them. And so we kind of abandoned a tiered or menued approach, and we now work with corporates directly to align with them and help them achieve their business goals. And just last week, we finalized our sponsorship outreach plan, which is how we are going to attack Q4. So that plan involves or includes reaching out to a minimum of 5 corporates per week, ideally 5 to 10, depending on how the conversations go and the return rate. And for that, we need your recommendations, ideas, warm introductions. There's so much to mine from our network, and we really want to take advantage of your ideas and your connections. Next slide. Thanks. So your personal and professional networks could be really valuable to Foresight, especially because of the kind of work that all of you are involved with, your contacts and your understanding, your innate understanding of Foresight as an organization. We will follow up with you via email in the next couple of weeks, and we would really, really like if you could sort of think about Foresight, think about our sponsorships. We'll try to include some examples, and if you would be willing to share your contacts, and if that could include making the warm introduction or allowing us to contact them directly on your behalf, that would be wonderful and would really help us set us on our way. I welcome any questions or suggestions, ideas, recommendations. If you know how to reach the end of the rainbow, my contact information is here. And yeah, I'd love to be in touch, but we will also be contacting you directly.
What's the primary role of a corporate sponsor?
Well, so it's interesting. It's beneficial in 2 ways. They support Foresight's programs, which of course support our networks, but it also gives them direct access to our network, depending on their level of engagement and involvement and on their business goals. They could have the opportunity to develop close relationships with our ventures, which could then turn into business relationships and client retention for the sponsor.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the marketing team. I like the marketing team because it's literally their job to make us look good. Michelle, tell us how you do that.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Michelle. I'm the brand manager. So I am responsible for making Stephen look good in some presentations, but he does it pretty well himself too. So speaking for the marketing team, community and communications team today, we've had a really busy quarter producing lots of campaigns, quality content, and we're seeing big growth across our social networks and newsletter following. And then we're just supporting the rest of the Foresight team with very exciting projects. So I'm just going to share a couple of highlights of what's coming up. So first on this slide, we're welcoming back our Women Leading Cleantech campaign. So this is an annual campaign. We started it last year, and we're profiling 20 women leaders in the cleantech sector. Each is going to have their own dedicated social graphic posted over the course of the fall with content about their achievements. So watch out for that starting in October. Next slide, please. Coming up really soon, our Canada Cleantech Venture Survey that's actually now open. The results of this survey will be shared publicly leading up to the election. And Tyler will actually send a link to the survey around after the meeting. And if you could share that with your network to boost venture responses, that would be really appreciated. And next up. So after a summer break, we're relaunching our Cleantech drinks, renamed and rebranded as the Helix Connection. This monthly event includes panel discussions, fireside chats with experts, and connection opportunities for industry, academia, innovators, investors, and government. The first one will be on September 4th. So as well as that, we have a bunch of events coming up in the fall, including our Investor Readiness Workshop, Climate Connection Series, the BCEU Cleantech Connect Series, energy storage and battery metal sessions. So if you can attend any of those, we'd love to see you there. And this week, we're opening up nominations for the Foresight 50. This will be a twice annual list recognizing Canada's top 50 cleantech innovators. And our goal around this list is to showcase successes, attract investments, and build connections to support the green economy. We're going to be releasing the first list later this fall. And an ongoing campaign that we would love you to participate in. Our Meet the EIRs campaign is a series of deep dive profiles into Foresight's EIRs. Engagement has been really strong so far. So if you'd like our network to get to know you and your work better, please connect with Karen, our Senior Communications Advisor, and she would love to interview and profile you. And that's it for now from the marketing team.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michelle. Lots to talk about on programs. Let's get started. Tyler, how about that next slide? All right, the spring cohort. We wrapped these folks up here with their July demo day. We had 16 companies we supported from across the country, including our first ones. Why is poor Maple Smart Controls not on there, Tyler? We had one from New Brunswick, our first company from New Brunswick. So that was quite exciting for me. I quite like the Net Promoter Score, 77%. That is a very, very good rating. I was, as I've looked at, I think 80% is kind of world class in terms of satisfaction. That would be most of the folks saying they would recommend this to another startup. 9 or 10 out of 10 was the rating. So very happy with the level of satisfaction of the folks who took part in our spring cohort. On the next slide, there's a few quick quotes there. I like Ty James, short and sweet. You have a business idea, Foresight can help you in many ways to make it happen. Ty is in the ag space and made a lot of progress through that program. Tim Southern's a serial entrepreneur. So I had to say the caliber of the program far exceeded my expectations from the EIR's input to the collaborative discussions with the other participants. So again, the programs we deliver, our launch and deliver, our Kickstart programs are very well received by the companies that go through them. That's what we did in the last quarter. Coming up, though, is going to be our largest cohorts ever. This will be our largest cohort of launch companies. Applications closed this Friday. We already have over 30 companies registered for the launch and deliver program, and we have close to 10 companies for our Kickstart programs. If you're not familiar with those words mean, I'll remind you all in a few minutes, but very excited for that coming up. Launch kicks off on September 10th. And Tony, what's the first date for Kickstart program?
The 9th.
The 9th. Busy, just after Labor Day there. We'll get cracking. Next slide, Tyler. All right, our programs. Let's go over what it is we do for those of you who may have forgotten, or in case we added something recently. The community of innovators. That is for everybody who's interested in clean tech. Academic researchers can join it, service providers can join it, government officials who are just interested in learning what's going on can join it. Everybody who's interested in clean tech, everybody who's in the community of innovators gets invited to those Helix Connection events. We want to bring together all the stakeholders there at those events, get everyone talking, have them able to see our newsletter. So please do recommend that to anybody that you think would be appropriate to join our community of innovators. It's free. You get all that value and it costs nothing. You get free information and access to what's happening at Foresight. Then we have our venture community. That's the second level. They have to be a clean tech. They can be at any stage. They have to be a registered company, but they can be in ideation, validation, growth, right? They might not necessarily see value in our programs because they're past that, but they want to be part of the Foresight family. They want access to our affiliate network. They want access to some of what we offer in our Fireside chat, some of our ongoing educational events. They can join the venture community. It has a one low annual fee of $250, and you get to participate in all that Foresight does and get to be a little bit more part of the conversation with the program managers to influence some of the things that we're asking for as we communicate with government. The most important one, the one I like the best, are our core programs, right? Kickstart, I've already mentioned. This is for ideation stage companies. My example, and I always bring in the chemists, is somebody who's in, doing some postdoc work on some great membrane technology, but they need to learn what problem it solves in the real world. They need to go out and talk to customers. They need to work on their value proposition. That's really what the Kickstart program is there for, is companies who don't yet really understand or can't articulate what value their solution has in the marketplace. Moving on from that, we have our launch program, which helps them validate the technology, move through the rest of the business model canvas. If they understand their customer segment and what value it has for them, how are they going to get it to them? What channels are they going to use? What pricing are they going to use? What are all the other questions that they need to answer to really come up with a workable business model, something that's scalable and viable that will go out there? If you like those TRL levels, I always think of that in that kind of 4 to 6 range, probably before they've got a customer pilot, is a good time for them to come in and work on those sorts of concepts around their business. We paired that with our Deliver program, which is quite unique. It's Cto Training. It was developed by David Sanguinetti and Jean-Louis Okrs. And what we saw, no one was providing support to CTOs. It was, if you could raise the money, you could find a gap in the marketplace, magically the technology would work. That's not always the case. We saw some companies fail. Foresight's been around for 8 years, and we said, we need to fix that. We need to bring in support for the technical lead of companies. And so we modeled it after our successful launch program. We have a 6-week training course to give them the skills and tools that we think they'll need, as well as one-on-one mentorship with folks who have done this before. So a very interesting program there. We have the next series. So in this cohort, we are going to have Energy Next and Water Next. There's going to be a series of activities specifically around, you guessed it, the water sector and the energy sector. And then finally, we have the Grow program, which is for companies that are scaling up their solutions. So Portable Electric is part of our Grow program. They have revenue, they've raised millions of dollars, they're raising millions more, and we need them to continue to receive support. We also have some workshops to fill in some of the gaps around what our core programming doesn't offer. This fall, we're going to have an investor readiness workshop. We're going to run that a couple times. The first one is in September. If anybody you know is going to be raising money, you might want them to look into this little program. It runs for 4 weeks. It's led by James Chupea and Shannon Kostonen, and we'll give them some of the tools and help them work through some of the things they'll need to be prepared. If they can't make it in September, they can take the course again in November or January or March, depending what's most helpful for them, so that they can learn what they need to know. We also will be launching our pilot program. What we found is that sometimes companies get stuck at that TRL 6, right? They have a prototype, but they can't get it onto a commercial site. They need that first commercial pilot. And that's not necessarily really skills that we've worked on too much in the launch program. So it really builds on what they've learned in launch and helps them with that next step, and hopefully to land that commercial pilot, which is why it's called the pilot program. And so that's another 4-week course that we'll be offering, I think in January. So that's coming up. It'll be a little bit new, but that's where we're trying to fill in some of the gaps around what we teach through our core programming. Next slide, Tyler. What are you supposed to get out of this? Well, really, that everything is kicking off in September. We're going to have the Launch and Deliver program starting in September. That's going to run for 12 weeks. The Kickstart program runs for 6 weeks, starts in September. The next cohorts, Energy Next and Water Next, they're going to start in September as well. And our investor readiness workshops start in September. You'll notice there's another block of lines that start in January. That's when our next cohorts are kicking off. And then finally in Q2, the last ones are going to be starting right around the end of April, beginning of May for our next set of cohorts. So that's kind of what I was hoping you to see here, is that we've structured it all so it all kind of starts at the same time, makes it exciting for Tony and Amanda. Next slide, Tyler. If you were here 3 months ago, you'll remember I talked about some key partnerships. With Energy Next, we're working with Unique Ventures. We've had 43 companies apply, and 15 of them have been referred over to Foresight. So many of them fit with Unique. They're an accelerator focused on the energy sector based out of Houston. Pairs well with our presence and our friends in Calgary to kind of round out that energy sector for North America. Water Next, we are working with Alan Shapiro is heading that up, and we had a partnership with Aqua Hacking, where we sent 8 companies through our Kickstart program over the summer. So that was quite interesting. It was also the first time we delivered content in French. So really fulfilling our pan-Canadian mandate, working with some Quebec companies there in the French language. So wonderful that we're now able to support folks truly coast to coast. And in the Accelerate from Anywhere partnership with CSI, we had 49 applicants to the Accelerate from Anywhere. This was really targeting folks who are not in major metropolitan centers, hence why it's called Accelerate from Anywhere, and wouldn't have access to acceleration services otherwise. 27 of those companies have been referred to Foresight, and many of them will be in our upcoming launch and Kickstart cohorts. So very excited about the results of that partnerships. And I'll talk a little bit about the academic engagement later on. So that's what we're doing with our partners. What are the next series? I mentioned them twice already, maybe more than that. The Water Next series, basically it's to help those ventures who are going through our launch and deliver program get a deep dive into how that market works. Sometimes folks don't understand, they haven't worked in the industry, they don't know who the players are, right? So we're working for Water Next, mapping the market. We're gonna have an end user spotlight, try to connect them to some of the industrial partners who might have challenges that they can solve. We're going to do some water tech success stories, so bringing in other folks from that space to tell them how they were navigated that market, navigating the value chain. So what partners will they need? What service providers? Who else will they want to know as they go and take their technology and commercialize it and turn it into a product? We'll have a little CTO spotlight looking at the technology. And finally, we'll end on a funding landscape and some pitch sessions. So we'll bring in some other industrial partners to give some feedback in a very positive way on the pitches presented by those companies. So that's what the Water Next series is going to look like. Energy Next is going to look very, very similar. I think it's on the next slide, isn't it, Tyler? So again, understanding the market, stage gate decision-making, I think, in the energy industry. So how are you going to work with a massive industrial partner who's got billions of dollars of revenue and works very slowly? You have to understand how their process works, make sure that folks understand that. Who are the service providers that you could work with? How can you work with them effectively to, bootstrap or get your technology into the field more cost effectively? So again, some success stories. A little bit difference between local and international markets. So we've got our partnership with Unique. What's it like working with the US companies? What's it like working with companies abroad? We've seen some great success stories. I was actually talking to Curtis earlier, who used to work at Crux OCM, and I think their first customer was in Norway. They got that through the Techstars program. So sometimes your first market might not be at home. We want them to understand what that international landscape looks like. And again, it ends on some industry pitch sessions. So those 6 sessions are being layered on top of the 12-week launch and deliver program. Launch and deliver we do on Fridays. These Water Next and Energy Next sessions will come in every second Tuesday to provide a little extra information, help them do a deep dive. We'll be doing this with every one of our cohorts. So every time we do launch and deliver now, we're going to have some sector specific activities. We're going to call for ventures there and add extra value for them. Coming up in January, it's going to be a Carbon Next and a Bio Next, so the biocircular economy and all carbon tech companies. So we'll be doing some special activities for them, bringing industrial partners around that, and hopefully doing a great call with lots of companies participating. Academic engagement, Tyler wants me to talk about that, so I will. This event series is called Climate Connections. It's going to be 10 reverse pitch events. We're going to bring in those industrial partners from our next streams, right? So Energy Next, Water Next, Carbon Next, Bio Next, and Ag Next. And we're going to do that twice in the academic year. And we're going to have those industrial partners talking to early stage innovators and university researchers to try to help them focus on problem-driven innovation. Right? We want to make sure that whatever they're researching in their labs is going to address a real world need and hopefully inspire them to pursue some solutions that will eventually, we can help them accelerate. The first session is going to be on September 21st. And so we look forward to that being very successful and fruitful. And again, we're pancaking, so we're partnering with UBC to do the first session, but we are inviting all academic institutions. So if you want your alma mater represented, feel free to introduce us to them because there's lots of them out there, and it's taking us some time to get through them all to let them know about this. Next slide, Tyler. Fireside chats. Tyler, do you want to talk about the fireside chats?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say I can hop in here, give you a little bit of an overview of what's going on with the Fireside chats. This is a new a speaker series that we're running with Foresight, and the audience is really the ventures in our programs. The idea behind this is obviously as a new entrepreneur, you're learning about a lot of different topics. And a lot of complexity in all those topics. So these sessions are really about not necessarily giving the right answers, but being able to ask the right questions. And so the way that we've structured this has been through the fireside chat. Typically, there's going to be a moderator and a couple panelists who will be able to facilitate some discussions, do some deep dives, and answer any questions that that the ventures have. That being said, we've also invited all the EiRs and mentors. The idea here is, if you want to drop in and learn about these topics or brush up and participate, we would absolutely love to have you. Our first one was actually, I believe it was last week, time is flying already, which was on corporate structure. Our next one is September 14th on ESOPs, and October 12th is coming up on capital markets. The meetings are optional for EiRs and mentors. Just wanted to put that out front, but like I said, please come join us. If you have any other suggestions for topics that we can cover, we'd also love to hear them going forward. And I'll turn it back over to you, Stephen.
Well, thank you very much. I've mentioned a few times the launch program. Here we're going to do some tweaks to the way we run this. In the past, we didn't really have a formal graduation. We're going to implement a more formal graduation where we will give them a little badge that they can put on their LinkedIn profile that we will use to say, you have completed this course. And surprisingly, it's becoming more common that folks are asking us for letters of support. So it will be those folks who have graduated from the program. That will entail both an endorsement from the executive in residence assigned to that company, that they met with them regularly, that they made progress, that they were open and coachable, as well as the moderators who see them in the weekly sessions, and that they've submitted their playbook. So the playbook is all of the pieces that we teach throughout the course. We give them a number of exercises, just that they upload that on Google Drive, and that we see that they've actually participated in the course. So not overly rigorous, I don't think, but it is a criteria that we will be putting in place in future so that we add some more value to the folks who've taken the course and graduated from it. We'll also be implementing an invitation to continue. So the course, as I've mentioned, Launch and Deliver, runs for 12 weeks. After that 3 months, we continue to support companies. We invite them to quarterlies every 90 days. For a quick review with an EiR panel of 3 to 4 individuals. We also continue their support with the executive in residence and mentor network. And that is extremely high value. And so we want to invite the companies that we think will fit best with the program and who will benefit the most. Benefit both Foresight, benefit the Canadian Cleantech ecosystem. And there it will be that you had to have graduated from the launch program, and as well that you will have to have an endorsement from the program manager. If they're not responding to the program manager, if they're not participating in certain other activities and not filling in their surveys in a timely fashion, if they're late with all their documentation for their quarterlies, then we may not invite them to continue in the program. I think this will hopefully encourage folks to take the program a little bit more seriously and hopefully allow us to focus more on supporting the companies that really value what Foresight can offer. And so that's why we're making these changes going forward to the launch program. So that'll start in this fall cohort with those 40 companies. This will be communicated to them, what's expected of them, and what they have to do to get invited to stay on as a Foresight company. So invitations to all those fireside chats and access to all those workshops. And of course, the most valuable thing, access to this network right here, is contingent on their performance in those first 12 weeks. All the companies who start the course are interviewed by a panel of executives in residence. So we think that they've got promise. but it's extremely difficult to really assess the progress they'll make, how coachable a company is, what challenges they're going to face and how they're going to overcome them. And so as we get to know them over the following 3 months, we'll be able to invite them to stay on longer should they be a fit and should they be putting in the effort commensurate to the certainly the value that we bring to the table. Any questions on that? If not, well, let's move on. Tyler, next slide.
Sorry, I'm a little bit slow. Yes, I do have a question. So you say, this is launch and deliver or just launch?
Mainly the launch portion of the course, yes. Because deliver is always a finite period of time.
Okay.
Our learning management system, part of our course, all of the one-way lecturing, all of that one-way traffic of communication, we try to store in videos that people can digest asynchronously, leaving us our live webinars to have value-added discussions. That's going to be updated. We're going to put a new little layer of login there that will give all of you access to all of the content. It will give access to the people who are taking the courses, the content that for the course they're currently enrolled in, and then upon graduation, access to all of the other content that's available so it can be recommended for them. This will keep them focused on what they're doing at that time, but will allow them access to all the other content later on. So this will be a little bit more secure. And Amanda Lowe will be reaching out with passwords for everybody, passwords for all. That'll probably be in early September. So look forward to that. If you have any questions, do let us know. It should be very simple to operate, but we do recognize there's always some challenges with new things. So we'll be looking forward to handling those and making it easy on you. The next thing I'll let you talk about, Tyler.
Yes, that is me again. Yeah, so updates to the skill matrix. What we currently have is, sorry, let me back up here. We, as we're growing, need a better way of capturing and cataloging the skills that are present within our network. If you can believe it, we have over 90 EIRs and mentors now. And so as you can imagine, that is getting more and more challenging. And so the idea here is really to be able to facilitate some of the connections with yourselves and the adventurers, but also being able to go out and find individuals to join our network and with skills that we might not necessarily have. And so the way that we're going to be structuring this is really kind of taking a cross section between the industry that you have expertise in and some of the skills that you have and kind of making a matrix out of them. So this information will be captured through a Google form. So that way we have all that information in the back end here. It'll be presented at the time of onboarding. So as new EIRs and mentors come into our network, we'll be capturing those skills up front. And certainly this is hopefully going to help going out and searching and finding those skills a little bit more easier. So yes, that is coming very soon. Lots of work has been going into it, and September 1st, you should look out for it. I am going to send it out to everyone who currently is in our network so that we can capture those skills. And yeah, I'm looking forward to rolling this out soon.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Next slide, and we only have 3 more slides, so patience. We're almost at the end of this. I know it's a lot of information. The company maturity assessment. This is a tool that we use to look at companies across 8 categories to help them understand where they are now, where they need to strategically focus their efforts to build business value. We have developed a guide to this that will help you talk about this with your companies to help you assess them. If you're in intake meetings, if you're in quarterly meetings, if you're working with a company. We will also have a little talk on this at the launch EIR session that we'll be doing on September 7th before the kickoff of the new event. And of course, because we love our learning management system, we'll then be recording some content to break it down for you so you can digest that at your leisure and review it. Any questions on that? All right. let's move on. 2 left to go. The SDTC's fund. I've been holding out on you. This is a fun one. Not quite the best for last, but pretty close to. The next round will open on September 30th. This is, we have some nomination slots. We are a nominating accelerator partner. This is for companies who are Canadian, who have a pre-commercial technology, show some environmental benefit. That's really easy. We're all clean tech companies, so every one of our companies should be eligible for that at least. They have private equity they've raised 2 times. And they have to be nominated by an accelerator. That's the portion here. We sent out a survey yesterday to all of the companies. If you have a company that hasn't received it, you think might be eligible, please poke them and make sure they get that in by next Monday, September 30th. We will then look at all the nominations and try our best to pick the companies that are most likely to win. SDTC does have their own review process. In the past, the last quarter, we nominated 3 companies. 2 of them received the money. They're eligible, it says $50,000 to $100,000. They're eligible to receive up to half of what they've received in private equity. So if they've received $200,000 of investment, they could get up to a $100,000 grant from SDTC. If they've only raised $100,000 through those 2 rounds, they would only be eligible to receive a $50,000 grant. So that survey is out there with the companies. If you talk to anybody and they haven't received it, please do poke them. If there's anybody you think I should be reminding them to get that in on time, do let us know. That's it's a popular one and a good way for us to help support some of these companies. And the closing date on that, I think, is September 9th. So we don't have a long turnaround time there to get all the information in, which is why we've asked them all to return their information by the 30th. And then we'd choose the ones we're going to nominate, and they have to then submit a letter online and some other documentation. So that's a fun one. And last slide, Tyler. Do you want to talk about the EIR feedback form? Or would you like me to?
Yeah, sorry, just getting unmuted there. Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, as we continue to grow, our numbers are getting up there. We want to make sure that, everyone's happy, and this is a valuable experience for you as well as our mentors. So following our meeting today, I will be sending a follow-up email just with one of our feedback. A feedback survey. Jeanette mentioned some feedback she would like as well. So please do look out for that. And yeah, on top of the survey, always please feel free to reach out to myself, Stephen, and Tony, Amanda, if there's anything that any suggestions that you have or anything that we can make this experience better for you. That's it for me. Stephen, if there's anything you would like to add on there, I'll be happy to give it back to you.
Thank you very much. Always value your feedback, your suggestions, your comments on how we're operating with companies, how we're taking care of our most valuable resource, which is this network right here, what you think we can improve. And with that, I think I promised a few minutes for questions. I know a few have popped up along the way, but if anybody does have anything that they would like me to go back and clarify on. I do know I talk quickly. That's purposely so I can get through all the information. But if I glossed over anything you'd like me to dive back into, let me know.
Stephen, a question for you. I saw that the OKR process got added to the launch program. And I think it's extremely helpful and complementary to the quarterlies. How are we to embrace that?
With both arms, Frank.
I already have.
With love and deep in your heart.
I already have, but it's like, how are we bringing this to the companies that have already gone through the launch program?
Yeah. So when we launch a new learning management system, we'll also give access to all of our past program participants. And the goal there is that as executives and residents and mentors, you can refer them to some content and say, hey, and as we're posting new content, that investor readiness workshop, all of those modules we're going to make available in the learning management system. You say, there's some great new content out there. Maybe you want to think about governance. There's a little module on governance there. Maybe you want to think about, the OKRs. I noticed, maybe that goal setting internally would help you move your team forward a little bit faster. maybe you want to review that one around minimum viable product. It seems that, you know, you're throwing in the kitchen sink into that thing, and that's maybe not the idea. So we do want you to leverage that learning management system and refer them to some of that content, either because, you know, maybe they didn't seem to understand it as deeply the first time, maybe they need a review on it, you know, time passes, or maybe it's something that we add new, like that OKR module. So thank you very much for bringing that up. And Lorraine is mentioning that she's got a little tracking system for OKRs for one of the Foresight companies. I think that's one of the things that Tyler is actually working on. So Lorraine, thank you for bringing that up. I will maybe touch base and see that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll send you an email afterwards and we can connect over that. Awesome, thank you.
Well, maybe on the services side of things, can we get an update on which services are available through mentors or partner companies? Because one of the things that we always run into, companies need help telling their story. What can we offer? What's the budget? Who can get that done within a reasonable time frame?
I mean, yes, you're right. We've been doing that kind of ad hoc, Frank, where we get requests in, and Tony or Amanda or I or Tyler recently have been trying to direct folks. But I think with our skills matrix, we'll hopefully be able to provide a better list of what we have currently. And I think that'll help us also identify where we have gaps that we should go add strength to our team. I mean, in some of the areas, obviously, we need a deep bench. I mean, you know, capital and fundraising. I think two of the companies who were on here today obviously have questions around that. I know that that's a common topic with companies, so we probably need representation across those skill sets, you know, from multiple folks, right? It's not just having one angel investor. It's probably having an angel investor who, you know, knows the community out in Eastern Canada a little bit better, in Ontario, or possibly even down in Seattle or the US. Aaron Fike, I don't think he was able to join us today, is here for, you know, joins us from Silicon Valley and can kind of give some guidance on presenting the United States. So certainly there are some areas where we know we need to strengthen our bench, and I think that that'll help us identify where we want to grow the team. So just a couple of minutes. Oh, Jeff.
Hi, the camera's back on. I just had a quick point following up on that. I had, after one of the quarterlies, one of the companies actually reached out to me outside of Foresight, and they were like, everything with Foresight has been fantastic, but where they were having some struggles is they really wanted to kind of go into, they called it the real world, but I see where they're coming from. Whereas everyone was talking about clean tech and it was we all want to save the world. And then when they went out to the real world, they got a lot of pushback, and they weren't really expecting that. And that's what I think, you know, maybe it just could be because they were early stage in the program, but that was just some feedback I got from one of the companies, that they really wanted to have more real world experience a little bit.
I could be meaner. I could do it. That's what you're.
I was just figuring they hadn't met with me, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, preparing them, and that's actually one of the modules that we're sort of developing, hopefully for the next quarter for our learning management system, is going to be about that entrepreneurial journey, right? I mean, it takes a lot of no's. It takes a long time. It might, you know, you might not be rich overnight. You might never be rich, and you know, there's a high failure rate in how you're going to deal with some of those stresses and challenges. So it's something that that we'll see if we can build some content around to prepare them for the realities of how many conversations they're going to have. I mean, my background is business development, and I got, you know, a lot more no's than yeses. And I think we do need to prepare them for that process.
Yeah, and Jeff, I agree with you, and I see that quite a bit as well. It sounds like it could be also in the trial area, right? It's nice to have a minimum viable product conversation, but by the time a paid trial is the next thing on that scale, and that's where people are going to be really honest. Is like, I'm not going to pay for that, or yes, I'll pay for that, but only in my time. And
yeah,
I think it's just
yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring it up because the last I had 2 companies in quarterlies back to back bring it up. So
yeah, I think, with some of the things we're trying to implement, I mean, with our quarterlies, we have kind of a green, yellow, red to sort of show them whether they're applying themselves in the progress. I think we're looking at how we can communicate a clearer statement of where they think they are. With the demo days coming up, I forgot to mention, we're actually, the folks who are going to be presenting at demo day out of these 40 companies are EIRs. They presented them twice as kind of practice sessions, and they'll be graded. And so companies that kind of don't meet that grade won't be invited to our demo day. So we'll be more clearly trying to communicate to people where they fit in that landscape. Like some of them are, have quite highly developed skills and are great communicators. And some of them, I think, will struggle a little bit more in the real world. And you're absolutely right. We don't want to give them a false sense of preparedness. We want to let them know where they are in their journey so that they have realistic expectations around that. With that, I think we're out of time. So I'm actually a little bit over time. I will just take a few seconds to say thank you so much for taking some time today, but moreover, committing to help the Cleantech ecosystem in Canada, to help Foresight, our wonderful team who've come out here today to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing, but more than anything, the ventures that we support. It looks like numbers on a page, but when you get to meet those 40 individuals we'll be working with in the fall, whose hopes and dreams are to build companies, whose hopes and dreams are to change the world and have a big impact, drive the Canadian economy forward, and address some of our climate challenges, I think that's where we really make a big difference. And I can't thank you enough for the time you take in doing that. With that, I'll say goodbye. I hope to see you all before 3 months' time, but if not, I'll see you at our next quarterly update.